Awesome. Let's begin. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our Gen Z Career Path Seminar. My name is Lily Pang, and I will be your host today. And I'm joined by our very awesome, very amazing guest speaker, Dr. Jin Lee. But before we hear a little bit from him, we're going to introduce to you some of our programs, such as AFI, Yefa, and the Gen Z Career Path Seminars. Starting off with Alliance for Impact. Alliance for Impact, which was formerly called the Chinese Coffee Club, is a registered 501c3 organization with the mission to empower Asian Americans to participate and make an impact in our society. And we do this through a lot of ways, and we take our philosophy and apply it in every single one of our activities. AFI has made a very large impact in our community, and this is just a couple of the things that we have done in recent years. First, we have helped to establish a cohesive Asian community with more than 50,000 people and 140 plus chat groups on social media. We also have the AFI Academy, which has trained over 3,000 Asian students of all age groups. We've also been dedicated members of the community, partnering with different organizations where we help serve up to 1,000 clients per week with food and PPE. We host over 200 online events per year, such as these Gen Z seminars that you're attending, and provided over $5.8 million worth of COVID relief in the form of PPE to the tri-state region. Under AFI, we have Yefa. Yefa, which stands for the Youth Entrepreneurship and Finance Association, is an IRS-approved 501c3 nonprofit organization. Notably, we are self-student run with, of course, adult mentors, and we provide volunteering opportunities and also leadership opportunities for all of our students involved. We do this through a couple of ways. First, we provide students a chance to learn, discuss, and participate in investment and entrepreneurship-themed opportunities, whether this is classes or even competitions, such as the Diamond Challenge. We also provide valuable educational and practice experience in portfolio management, as well as starting up companies. And finally, we host a variety of guest speakers, like our lovely guest speaker today, ranging from industry professionals to current students and even Yefa members. So these are all different ways that Yefa members are able to learn and grow their personal abilities. With that being said, if you're interested in participating in AFI, our wonderful programs, and everything under AFI, such as Yefa and the Gen Z Career Path seminars, which I'll introduce to you shortly, please scan this WeChat QR code. I'll give everybody a couple of seconds to get this scanned. If you don't get it scanned, no worries. I'll show you this short introduction presentation. Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the Gen Z Career Exploration Seminars. These seminars are founded to create an opportunity for youth to not only learn about future career paths and figure out their different passions and educate them for future career planning, but also to give youth like me an opportunity to learn how to organize events and seminars and reach hundreds of thousands of youth across the US and the world. So, what are the Gen Z Career Path seminars? We host a series of seminars under different majors or career fields, hosting industry professionals. There are different fields, which means that if you want to be a part of our program, you can sign up and attend seminars for whichever field which is most interesting to you. We have seminars that are entirely hosted by students, so we, the students, are doing all the reaching out to speakers, the planning, and running the seminars. Within this, we have different divisions, such as the marketing division, event coordination and outreach, the hosting division, etc. This offers a lot of benefits and opportunities to youth. First, you get to learn about different career paths and opportunities and get to speak to trained professionals who have years of work experience in the fields that you might be interested in. It also helps you to discover what you're really interested in and connects you to a variety of industry professionals. You can learn how to host seminars and exercise your public speaking skills, develop leadership, marketing, planning, and management skills as well. So if you're interested in some of our past series, we've hosted finance series, such as these shown on the screen. We've also hosted a series of tech seminars, such as these. And we've even hosted students. So if you're interested in Gen Z, then you can feel free to get in touch with us at yefa.genz@gmail.com or scan this QR code. I'll give you all a couple of seconds to scan if you're interested, and then after this, I will put up our AFI code again. Perfect. While you all are scanning to get into the AFI group chat, I have the privilege of introducing our esteemed guest speaker today, Dr. Jun Lee. Dr. Jun Lee is a Senior Director, Corporate Counsel in the Legal Department at BioMarin, a global biotech company. He provides legal and regulatory advice on a broad range of U.S. Food and Drug Administration and European Medicines Agency-related issues to internal stakeholders. Prior to BioMarin, Dr. Lee was a senior lead regulatory counsel at FDA for 11 years, mostly in the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research's Office of Medical Policy and the Office of the Commissioner. He was a lead author for several high-profile guidances and participated in important policy development activities. Before joining the FDA, Dr. Lee worked for more than 4 years at the FDA/Healthcare Practice Group at Morgan Lewis, a global law firm, advising clients on FDA and healthcare-related matters. Dr. Lee received his JD from George Washington University Law School and his PhD in Human Nutrition from The Ohio State University. We are so lucky to be joined by our guest speaker today, and in our seminar, you have the privilege of hearing first a slideshow presentation from Dr. Lee, followed by a panel Q&A where I will ask Dr. Lee some questions. And then finally, we'll open up to audience Q&A. So throughout the seminar, if at any time you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box and we'll get them answered at the end of the seminar. With that being said, please help me welcome Dr. Lee.
Thank you so much, Lily, for the kind introduction. And thank you again for this wonderful opportunity for me to share essentially my journey as a lawyer, starting out at a law firm and then moving to government and then currently serving as an in-house counsel. So I hope the information and the discussion from today's seminar will help you when you decide, in the future, when you consider a legal career. So let me share my screen real quick. So I have about 9-10 slides. So can everybody see my screen? All right, excellent. So, but before I start, I'd like to, I'm trying to move this, so maybe I'll stop share and then share again. All right. Okay. Yeah, I think I have trouble advancing the slides for some reason, but no worries. Let me do that one more time. So, but maybe while I address this technical difficulty, let me ask you as a sort of a survey question, right? Because I want to make this interactive from the beginning, right? So when you hear the word, lawyer, or when you hear so-and-so is a lawyer, or more likely so-and-so's parent is a lawyer, what comes to mind? You can type your answer into the chat box. All right. So let me quickly address this.
Yeah, and if it's still not working, then feel free to let me know and I can present your slides for you.
Okay, yeah. So I'll give it one more try. And debate. So I think I might have missed. Okay, all right. Very good. All right, TV show suits, expensive. Lawyers are expensive, and so are their suits, right? Read a lot. Debate. Be very careful. Okay, yeah. Every word. Analysis. 很会说话，很会读书. Yeah. What crime? What does it mean? Strategic. Okay. Yeah. I assume you mean like very nice offer, like a salary, high salary. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, Chat GPT replaceable. Yeah, I'm very glad you put a question mark at the end. Otherwise, I'll be very scared. Yes, long hours of work. Yes. Yeah, 逻辑思维极强. Yeah, it's just very logic, right? Logical thinking. So these are all very, very good reactions. I hope I can come back at least to some of them when we have the chance. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So let me try one more time. All right. Excellent. Right. So now I have all the answers. Well, most of them anyways, right? So I think the next slide may answer or may address, some of these responses, right? So there's always this contrast between perception or your expectation and the reality, right? So you're a law student, you graduate from law school, you pass the bar, you get to work at this big law firm, right? There's a first-year associate, pretty high salary, right? It's like a good offer, right? Good offer. And then what my friends think I do, doing a selfie like this, right? It's rich maybe, right? And what my family thinks I do, like, very respected, right? And, this is a TV series, right? What I think I do, apparently, according to Wikipedia, this is an Australian TV show, TV drama. And this is the reality, of course, what I actually do, right? So I want to maybe talk a little bit about, just one more slide, right? So this is, if you live in the DC area, you might have, and you like to run, I qualify for the first one, but not the second one. But then you might have heard of this Lawyers Have Heart. So this is essentially an annual event where people would run, race, walk, right, for charity. So because it's in collaboration with American Heart Association, and I think the starting it all begins, I think, in 1990s, again according to Wikipedia, when there's this perception that lawyers they're not sympathetic, they're cold-hearted, right? They're just all business, right? So to counter that perception, some lawyers say, hey, we're not that, right? We're sympathetic, we have heart, right? So they founded this event, right? So now going back to some of the questions or the responses, right? Lawyers are expensive. Yes. I'm a in-house counsel, and occasionally, when I have questions, I have to reach out to outside counsel, right? So we have this collaboration or partnership with a law firm, and this partner happens to be based in London. So I chatted with him a couple of times, each time in about 30 minutes. And when the bill comes, it's like, whoa, I think hourly rate is more than $1,000, right? So yes, so lawyers are expensive, and lawyers do read a lot. I think that's one of the things that, if people ask me, right, at an early age, I think, teenagers, right, high schoolers, it may be a little bit too early to decide for sure that you're going after this legal career. But if there's like an indication that, maybe this is for you, is if you read a lot, and then you can also summarize what you read, like pages and pages, in a couple of sentences, right? So you just capture the key messages like very sharply, and then, but you also pay attention to details, right? So if people ask you about the details, if you don't remember, at least you know which page or where to find it quickly. So if you can do this, of course, this is all trainable, right? This is not, whether you're born with it or not, like math. I tend to think math is like whether you know how to do it or you don't, right? But I'm wrong on that too, right? So, but I think reading, yes, you do read a lot. And all right, now I can't recognize my own handwriting. So anyways, yes, you have to be able to think critically and analyze critically, right? So it just, don't take things for granted, right? And very strategic, that's true. And is it going to be replaced by AI? I'm not sure, right? I hope not. But I think, people say like Chat GPT, or maybe, that I haven't really tested, but I heard there's also other softwares where that are targeting law firms, right, or lawyers in general, where you can feed like hundreds of pages of document into that software or app, and then it can, spill out something like, either a summary or maybe even pointing out the logical flaws in that document, which would take hours and hours of for a lawyer to figure out. So I think in that sense, you can say, if you're optimistic, you can say that makes a lawyer's job more efficient, right? But at the same time, you can also say, well, then you probably don't need that many lawyers then, right? So I think this is all debatable, and well, I think we're just seeing AI. It's just taking off. I think we're living in a very exciting times, right? So I think this is to be determined. Whether this is the legal career is ChatGPT replaceable. Long hours of work, that's for sure, right? That's for sure. This is a major reason why a lot of young attorneys, especially if particularly when they are working at big law firms, there's a very high rate of burnout, right? So this is just lawyers may be working 80 hours to 100 hours a week, right? So that's a lot of hours, right? So yes, so very, very good response. I really appreciate it. Now here's the sort of the path, right, from where you are, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, right, high schoolers, to a legal career, right, if that's your choice. You start out, of course, you have to go to college because in this country, you cannot go to law school without a bachelor's degree. Maybe many years ago, it's possible in some states, perhaps Louisiana, which at one time was following maybe the French system, right? Like, some other parts of the country, like in England or the United Kingdom, you can do that, right? You can have a, go straight to study law and get a bachelor's degree, and you can practice. I think, in getting certain kind of practice, but not all kinds, right? So, but no, in this country, you have to get a degree, and what do you major, right? I think you can major in anything pretty much, right? So it's not, if you survey the incoming first year law school students, you will find perhaps like many of them major in like the usual subjects like history, English, right, political science, right, or even philosophy. But in reality, I think you also find many other majors, even like music education, music performance, right, things like that. So you can pretty much major anything that interests you, right? So there's no, I mean, I think some schools offer like pre-law or some schools even offer like 3+3, because lawyers, law school is full-time. Law school is, for the most part, in most part of the country, is 3 years, right? So some university, I think it's Louisiana State, they offer 3+3. So that is, if you know for sure that you're going to law school, when you enter college, you can enter that, that track. So 3 years of undergrad and 3 years of law school. So that saves you 1 year, right? But for the most part, it's 4 years college and then 3 years law school. And then you start a legal career, right? You graduate, you pass the bar, right? And then you work as a lawyer. So then a subset of us would go this sort of a alternative route, right? So this means after you graduate from college, you have your first career, right? You may be a teacher, you may be like a military, you're military personnel. I remember when I was in law school, there was a person who was a fighter jet pilot for the US Marine, and he served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Very nice guy. And also you can be a doctor, right? There's some people who get a medical doctor degree and perhaps even, works for several years, and then they decided to go to law school. Or you could be a researcher. So that's me, right? So I came to this country in 1996 to study human nutrition, and I graduated in 2002, and I did 3 years of postdoc. And then I realized research is not for me. So that's why I decided to go to law school and then start this legal career, right? So this is the less common route, right? And of course, there are also people, perhaps even less common than the second one, which they go to law school, but they didn't work as a lawyer, right? So instead, maybe for whatever reason, they I know some people become high school teachers, right? After law school, or they may even pursue a medical degree, right? So yeah, I think it just there's all kinds of possibilities, right? So I think the bottom line is don't limit yourself, right? Be open-minded. So this is, I think I mentioned this a little bit, but I want to say a little bit more about my career path, right? So I went to a GW law school, and I was extremely fortunate because in my second semester of the first year they call 1L, right? 1L, 2L, 3Ls. I found a law clerk, part-time law clerk position at this law firm called Morgan Lewis. It's one of the largest law firms in the country. I think today they have about 1,600 lawyers across the world, right? And this year happens to be the 150-year anniversary, right? So it was founded in 1873. So that's pretty amazing. And then, so I got a part-time law clerk position. So I would go to law school in the morning, and then in the afternoon I would go to the law firm. I worked in the FDA practice group, right? So as you can see, if you live in around DC, you're familiar with DC. You see, this is it's really based in a pretty prime location. It's on Pennsylvania Avenue, 1111. White House is 1600, right? So only several blocks away from the White House. And for a while, I think when I was a law clerk, my office number was 1111 because it's on the 11th floor, and but it's an internal office, meaning there's no windows, right? So, but it's a great place to work. And also the firm was very tech savvy, because when internet was just around, well, the full name of the firm is Morgan Lewis and Bockius. Bockius is Bockius, right? So when internet was first around, it the firm registered its domain name, right? MLB.com, right? So if you know, familiar with baseball, Major League Baseball, right? It's also MLB.com. Yeah, but at the time, Major League Baseball was Morgan Lewis's client, so Morgan Lewis actually transferred that domain name MLB.com to Major League Baseball for $1. So I thought that was pretty neat. But then I worked there for 4 years, 2 years as a part-time law clerk, 2.5 years as an associate. But then my son was born, so I needed a better work-life balance. So that's when I transitioned to FDA, U.S. Food and Drug Administration, working primarily on clinical policy development. So I spent 11 years there, and this is a picture I took on my last day. It was October 2021. You can see the campus. It's located in White Oak, Maryland. It's very peaceful and quiet because we were still in the middle of a pandemic back then. But it's beautiful campus. You can actually see my office. That's my office right there. It has a pretty good view. Right now, I am a corporate counsel in this. Corporate counsel at BioMarine. So it's a biotech company. It's headquartered in Marin County, San Rafael. So it's about 45 minutes north of San Francisco. Right. So I work in the legal department there. And my next 3 slides, they really show essentially the same thing or same theme, I guess. That is really when you talk about law, the areas of practice are very diverse, right? So this first slide was taken from Morgan Lewis's webpage. So this is, areas of practice. You can see it's not, not quite from A to Z, but from A to W. So it's close enough, right? So you have American Indian law, antitrust, artificial intelligence, right? And then towards the bottom, you have, whistleblower and, retaliation, white collar crime, that's a big one. And then workforce change. So Morgan Lewis is actually is known for its labor and employment practice, very, very renowned in the country. Now, when you think of federal agencies, right? Of course, there are so many federal agencies across different areas, right? So these are all these different agencies, and within each agency, I can guarantee you there are, dozens, if not hundreds of lawyers working there, on, policy, enforcement, everything, you name it. And if you search on this webpage, this is USA Jobs. So this webpage posts all these openings of federal government jobs, and you type in attorney, there's hundreds of them. And I think this is my last slide. In a pharmaceutical company, right, like in BioMarine, of course, there's also many different areas of practice. How do you advertise and promote your drug in a legally and regulatorily compliant way, right? And how do you deal with contracts, draft and review contracts? This is, sort of the bread and butter of what the legal department does. Employment, again, very important. Intellectual property, like patent and trademark, how do you protect your inventions, essentially? Litigation, of course, there's disputes all the time, with competitors, sometimes even with government agencies, right? How do you protect patients' privacy, right? And there's product liability issues. And how do you address that, right? And my focus is on regulatory law, right? How do you comply with FDA law and regulation, right? And how do you support research and development And finally, of course, BioMarine is a public company, so there needs to be periodic SEC filing, Security and Exchange Commission, so like 10K and things like that. So there are lawyers handling those so-called corporate governance, right? So I think I'll stop here, and if you have questions, please feel free to ask. So maybe Lily, you want to start, right?
Yes. So now we're going to be moving on to the Q&A session. So I have a couple of questions prepared for Dr. Lee after that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for preparing that. Definitely very informative. I know I myself learned more than a couple of things. So while I'm going through and asking Dr. Lee some questions, you all please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box as well, and we will do our best to get those answered. Awesome.
All right.
So my first question is, since you kind of have a unique skill set where you have both a PhD and a JD, I was wondering, how has your PhD helped you, or has it helped you in any way when getting your JD, or have you noticed any relationships between the skills needed between the two fields of study?
Yeah, great question. I feel like it definitely helped me in both the in terms of getting into law school and also getting my job, right? As a part-time law clerk. And I think the reason is I want to mention something about getting like applying for law school, right? So I have I think I applied for 5 law schools, which is not much in hindsight, because at the time I was doing my postdoc work in Buffalo, New York, at Roswell Park Cancer Institute, and my wife was working at Johns Hopkins, and we wanted to come back to the Baltimore area. So I applied for GW, Georgetown, Maryland, and of course Harvard and Yale, right? Why not? So, but I think I got waitlisted for Harvard. I got on the preferred waiting list for Georgetown, but I got got very lucky. I got admitted by GW. But I felt like without the PhD, I think it might have been a different story, right? Because for some reason that year it was very competitive, the admission, right? So that was very helpful. And in terms of getting my part-time law clerk job, it was extremely helpful as well. The reason being that Morgan Lewis, the FDA practice group, they were out of a law clerk for several months because the previous law clerk graduated from GW, and she became a full-time associate, right? So, but then, every law firm is different, but for Morgan Lewis at the time, they wanted someone with a advanced degree in life sciences, right? So my predecessor, the one who graduated, she had a master's degree in, I don't know, medical biology or something like that, right? So they wanted to find someone, with also advanced degree. So that's where I came in. But for some other law firms, I can say with confidence that, for example, there's one very prestigious law firm right across the street from Morgan Lewis. It's called Covington and Burling. If you look at, they also have a very good FDA practice group. If you look at their associates, profile, they don't have life science background. Like their major is not like biology or like in undergrad. But they're all Harvard graduates, Harvard Law School graduates, right? So I think their philosophy, it seems to me, is if you're good enough to go to, say, Harvard Law School, and then that shows that you can learn quickly, right? So even if this is new, this biology, this, food and drug law, there's a lot of technical stuff, but they're confident that those people, young associates can learn quickly, based on their credentials, essentially. Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess that kind of ties to a couple of the questions that I see in the chat box.
Right.
So, what are any recommended majors you have if you want to be a lawyer?
Yeah, I think, just because, like I said, the areas of practice, they're so broad, right? You can practice almost anything, right? The criminal law, of course, like a tax, like IRS and tax, right? And then of course, energy, right? Energy is a big one, labor and employment. So I think it might be difficult to for a young person to decide, maybe in the first year in college, to major something just because, in the future that person wants to go to law school and practice that particular area of law, right? Because things change, your interest will change too. So I feel like, you can major anything that interests you, right? Because if you major something just because, right, you're thinking about law school, what if things change? So I feel like, my advice would be just, just do anything that you find interesting, but not necessarily limited to, what kind of law you want to practice, like in 7 years or something like that, right? So because that's really hard to predict. But I do know that, for example, certain majors or maybe even certain universities, like Cornell, I think they have some institute that's pretty well known across the country. I think it's related to labor and employment issues, right? So that's why I remember hearing people, when I was at, still at the law firm, that they hired people, who not only, went to law school, but their undergrad was in Cornell, right? Majored in that, labor and employment stuff, right? So I think that may be helpful, but I think, again, I think, if like early on that you're interested in this major, undergrad, then good for you, right? So you stick to that all through law school, and then you get employed, you get to work in that field. That's fantastic. But I would say that's the sort of only a small fraction of people can do that.
Definitely. So, you were also talking about like different types of law schools and how that might impact your chances of getting hired. So, if somebody is wondering if it is necessary to get into a top 20 school to find a decent job after graduation.
Right. Yeah, I think I have to say, my advice is probably 15 years old, right? Because, what I'm saying is based on what I learned in the past, right? So because I have not been following very closely, the trend in terms of, how law firms hire people. But in the past, like 10, 15 years ago, yes, if you want to increase your chance essentially of getting hired by big law firms, right? I think you want to get into the not top 20, by the way. Somehow, I think that's what I've been told anyways. First tier one law schools, there are top 14 schools, right? And GW is a very good school, but it's just not, I think it was never a top tier one. So tier one, so 14 schools, and more oftentimes ends with Georgetown. Georgetown is number 14. Right? So the reason being that, at least back then, those big law firms, they would do like a fall interview, like, interview on campus at law schools, but they only do in those tier 1 schools and perhaps the top I don't know, 5, 10 tier 2 schools, including GW, right? So they do interviews, they recruit people who finish the first year of law school. And so those students are entering second year. So based on primarily their GPA at law school, first year GPA. So those students are hired as, so-called summer associates, right? So they're doing summer associates after they finish the second year, right? And for those summers, if they don't make big mistakes, during that summer associateship, then they will be hired, when they graduate from law school. So, but the thinking back then was, if you are, like, say, tier 1 school and you score, let's say, the maybe the top 20% of your class, I think your chance of getting, into those big law firms are pretty high, right? But if you are tier 2 or say bottom of tier 2 or, tier 3 schools, then you have to be, like, say, maybe perhaps top 5% of your class, right, to be hired by the big law firms.
I see. So, that kind of connects to the idea of like, if it is kind of important to get into a top law school, what attributes are these law schools looking for, when they're like reviewing the student applications?
Yeah, I mean, that I think obviously, I think GPA, right? Your undergrad GPA is a big part, and also the GPA, the undergrad school, right? If you're in, like an Ivy League, obviously you get a better chance. I would say, at least 10 years ago. Now I think there are other factors that are being considered, but back then, yes, the undergrad school, your undergrad GPA, and your LSAT score, right? So I think today, I think I've heard that maybe more and more schools are not considering LSAT as much, right? But still, they have to consider something, right? So I think, I would say it doesn't hurt to have a very high LSAT score, right, to set you apart from others.
Right, right. So then I guess once you're already done with your law school and looking for a career, a
Mhm.
lot of people might find themselves in a position where they don't have a lot of professional experience. So, what is something an interviewer who's hiring a young, inexperienced employee looking
Right,
for?
right. Yeah. Again, I think now, people are taking more things into consideration, but I would say traditionally, or at least 10 years ago, and an interviewer, like, let's say a big law firm, right? They really don't have to reinvent the wheels, so to speak, because you have already several indicators available to you if you are an interviewer. One is, of course, the law school ranking, right? So is it tier 1, tier 2? And second is the GPA, right? Are you 10%, top 10%, top 20%, right? So all these are indicators, and also, of course, your undergrad GPA and your undergrad school. All these are indicators of how well you can do when you are learning new things, right? Because, right, it just, lawyers are just like any other profession, you learn new things all the time, right? And I think, being able to get into a top tier law school and doing well in your class, I think that's a pretty strong indicator that you learn things fast, right? And you can do well under stress, right? I think those are the attributes, right? For example, you read things very quickly, and you also capture things, right? So yeah, so all those are good indicators.
Definitely. So, kind of pivoting a little bit, um, let's talk about your actual like work career, what you do. So, at the beginning, you talked about how there's kind of some misconceptions of what a lawyer's job looks like. I was wondering if you could just kind of walk us through an average day in your life as a lawyer and what kinds of things that you do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because I my main job is to support the regulatory affairs function. So I just like a lot of other my other colleagues, I have a lot of meetings, right? So in theory, because the company's headquarters is in California, so there's a 3 hours time difference, right? So my first meeting shouldn't start until like 11 Eastern time, right? So that's 8 a.m. their time. But because this is a global company, so I have colleagues based in London, based in France, or Milan, Italy. So sometimes I would have pretty early meetings, or even 9 o'clock meetings, and sometimes a lot of times the meetings are pre-scheduled, but there's also what we call fire drills, right? We got something from FDA, and how do we respond? And also, for example, we have collaborators or we have vendors, and we want them to do certain things, but they refused. They said they cited FDA regulation. They say FDA regulation doesn't allow us to do this. And my colleague said, "Is that true?" Right. So you have to look into the regulation and guidance, and a lot about this is about how do you interpret it, right? And what's the FDA's enforcement record and things like that. So I would say it's a mixture of things that you wanted to do, like pre-planned, and then things that I have to really address quickly. Yeah.
Definitely. So, what are some of the biggest challenges you would say then in somebody who's either in the field of law or
Mhm.
somebody with a job similar to yours?
Right. I think, one of the challenges is, I think maybe at the beginning, one of the responses touched upon that is, oh, now I recognize my handwriting. It's like be very careful with what you say, or something with every word. That's not only with the lawyer, but also like when a lawyer walks into a room, on the conference room, people are, we're chatting, but as soon as the lawyer walks in, people are like, shh, lawyer's here, right? You have to be careful what you say, I mean, half jokingly, right? But I think that's actually, to me, one of the challenges, which is lawyers also, goes back to the perception. Perception is lawyers would say no to everything. Can't do this, can't do that, because lawyers are, so-called risk averse, right? We don't like to take risks, right? So we try to avoid them, and to the point where sometimes I feel like when a lawyer is involved, the whole thing gets more complicated, gets more burdensome, and less efficient, with not much added value, right? So I can give you one example, which is my boss when I was working in the Office of Medical Policy in Cedar. My boss, she retired from FDA, and she joined a consulting firm, right? So, but when she was at FDA, she was actually helping some nonprofit organizations, like Friends of Cancer Research and things like that. Essentially doing pro bono work, right? Just without charging them any fees. And she wanted to continue to do that after she moves to the consulting firm, right? But that creates a big problem for the lawyers on both sides, right? Because And I think lawyers are used to, drafting those agreements or contracts where the consulting firm, those consultants can charge, well over $1,000 an hour. But, but it's because my former boss, she wanted to charge them like, symbolically $1. She obviously she could not do it for free. So she had to charge like $1 per year, for her pro bono service. But it turned out to be very challenging for the lawyers. And so it took, I think, several months for both sides to finally agree upon like a, a, a contract. So that's almost comical, right? So that's a little bit on the absurd side, right? So if you ask me, but I think that's where I think, lawyers in this case, they're not necessarily adding value, right?
I see. So, you also talked a little bit about how, especially at the entry level, I guess,
Mhm.
the time commitment for being a lawyer is a lot, and there's long work hours. So, how do you handle this balance between, I guess, your life, your career, and other things like that?
Yeah, I think it's very challenging, right? So maybe, it's one thing perhaps if you're single, right? You don't have family, you don't have kids, but once you have family, I think it becomes more challenging. I mean, even when you're single, of course, and people realize that, right? So when I graduated in 2008, the starting salary for first year associate in the DC, big law firms was 160,000, right? So that was a lot of money because most first year associates, they're 25 years of age, right? So they graduate from college at 22, 3 years of law school at 25. So that's a lot of money. But then you are also talking about like DC, New York, these major markets where people, the associates have that kind of starting salary. Those are expensive places to live, right? LA, San Francisco, right? And people realize that. People say, oh yeah, they're just, pay us, 2-person salary and ask us to do 3 persons work, right? So it's but still it's a lot of so-called billable hours, right? So it started, I think, at 1800 and then gradually just, going up. I think 1920, 2000, and you're talking about billable hours, meaning the hours that you can bill the clients, right? So that, if it's 2000 and if you think about it, it's 50 weeks per year. So essentially you have to bill clients 40 hours a week. And that means you have to work absolutely, more than 40 hours a week to be able to bill that much, right? So it is challenging, and especially for certain practice areas, right? For like a merger and acquisition, right? It's I think they're essentially working around the clock for say 1 week, a week or two, right? So essentially, more than well over 100 hours per week. Yeah, I think it's, over time, I think it takes a toll, right? Physically, psychologically, and that's why uh, many associates they leave, right? They leave law firm after a certain years. They either go to in-house or they go to government, for better work-life balance. But some do stay, right? Some do stay. I do remember that when I was there on the 11th floor, we have the FDA healthcare practice group. We also have the antitrust group. And based on my observation, the entire floor, the person who leaves the earliest in the afternoon was a partner that I worked very closely with, and she would leave at 6:30 p.m. And she had a very good excuse because she had to catch the train, right? So, but for the rest of us, I know a partner, she was there from 8 to 8, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., right? So yeah, so when you have partners like that, right, then the associates, typically they work even longer hours. So, but I think, yeah, I think it's extremely challenging. That's for sure.
Awesome. So as it is 10:02, let's take a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up.
Sure.
So kind of related to the AI talk we had earlier,
Right.
how will AI impact this profession?
Yeah, I think that remains to be seen, right? I think if you ask different people, people will have different opinions, right? Some people will say, hey, we have been through this sort of before when we have computers, right? That replace typewriters. Do you remember? Do you know what a typewriter is? A typewriter, right? And also we have internet, right? Internet, then that makes things very different, right? But that doesn't, the appearance of the internet and computers, I don't think they like negatively affect the legal market, right? In meaning the number of lawyers needed. I don't think it was dramatically down because of those technological advances, right? So, but on the other hand, I think, as I said earlier, right, if AI is making things much more efficient, right? In the past, you may need, you know, 3 lawyers and, doing like, 80 hours each, right? Now you feed that into the AI and then it spit out an answer in like 15 minutes, right? So do you need all the 3 lawyers? Maybe not, right? So I think the short answer is it remains to be seen, but perhaps in the short run, the market is not affected as much. I think if somebody asked, what's the job market? Again, I haven't been paying very close attention, but I think that this country, every year it generates a lot of law school graduates, right? So I think, when the economy is good, right? When the economy is good, obviously the market is good, but when the economy tanks, like, I remember when the 2008, 2009 recession came, there were actually law students, law school graduates. They sued their law school for being like deceptive and, like posting misleading employment information, employment data, right, on the law school's webpage. So they were misled into applying for that law school, and when they graduated, they were not find, those plaintiffs, right? They were not able to find a legal job, and essentially they were saying, we're earning, we have to do something else, not really legally, not related to legal and legal work, and we're earning less than our high school classmates who are mechanics and plumbers. Essentially, that's what they're saying, and that's absolutely true. So that's what happens when you have more law school graduates than the market can take, right? But also that's what happens uh, essentially when you go to like a tier 3 school. That's more likely to happen when you go to a lower tiered law school compared to a top tier. That's for sure.
Awesome. So, last question to wrap it up because I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Sure.
Just, is there any one piece of advice that you would like to leave with all the people watching the seminar today? It doesn't have to be related to law. It can be general career, even life advice. Just one thing that you think would be useful for us to carry with us moving forward.
Yeah, I think, the one thing I want to say is really just keep an open mind, right? So be open-minded, be flexible, right? Because maybe you're interested in something today, but your interest may change over time. Or maybe that job market, that, maybe it's very hot, it's very nice, but it may not be there in 7, 10 years. I remember, like I said, I came to this country in 1996, back then there was the internet just started, right? I think we had a Netscape. I'm not sure Yahoo was available then, but you know, if I had to call home in Beijing, China, you know, I have to dial this number, and the cost was $1.30, $1.30 per minute, right? So, and if you're back then, you think, oh, you know, this trans-Pacific, you know, this telecommunication, this is a very lucrative business. You know, I want to get into that. Well, guess what, right? Like 10 years, not even 10 years after that, there's a telephone cards, phone cards, right? So essentially, you can call China for 5 cents per minute. You know, not $1.33, 5 cents. And fast forward, you know, to today, you can call for free. You can video, right? The video conference for free, right? So I think, you know, technology changes. So same thing with law, right? So if you're thinking, yeah, maybe this field is you know, red hot today, you know, there's a lot of demand, you know, that demand may not be there in a few years, you know, after you finish college and law school, right? So I think, you know, the saying, of course, you know, it's a little bit cliche, you know, the only thing that doesn't change is change itself, right? So I think if your goal is, you know, for no change, I think you'll be disappointed. So I think just, you know, keep an open mind and be flexible, embrace change, essentially.
Awesome. I think that is a great piece of advice. As someone who is going forward and will be in their first year of college next year, that's definitely something that I needed to hear because I'll make sure that I stay open-minded, and I encourage everybody in the audience to take that advice with them as well, going forward, exploring any career path. So, with that being said, that will conclude our seminar for today. Thank you so much again, Dr. Lee, for preparing the presentation, taking the time to help make this possible, and for talking to all of us. Your information will be able to help the future generation, whether they become lawyers or any other career. So we really, really appreciate your time and your help as a speaker.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and I really appreciate your and your co-hosts and the parents, all these efforts behind the scenes. I think this is very meaningful, very important work. So keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our lovely participants. We are so happy to have you today. And that officially concludes our seminar. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely night.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
那个 Lily, maybe we can reshare the QR code one more time. So
Sure.
just let the audience get into the it's a temporary WeChat group. So whoever you guys join the group, please add me, Alison Zhao, in the group, and then I will invite you guys into our Yefa group. Since the Yefa group is already over 200 people, so we cannot let you guys scan the group QR code. Okay, so we keep this QR code up maybe for another 2 minutes, and then we can just close the Zoom. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison.
And thank you so much, Lydia. I thought that went pretty well.
Yeah, it was amazing. Even like for me, it was super useful because I'm someone who's really interested in the field. So I definitely learned a lot. And I think your experience as somebody who is both a scientist and a lawyer definitely brings some unique perspective for all of us who are interested in the field. So I don't want to take up any more of your time. So while we display this code, you're free to go. Thank you so much once again. You really helped to make something very wonderful happen. So we are very grateful for your help.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you. You have a good night.
All right.
Thank
you too.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, 李军博士。Thank you.
谢谢。
感谢大家。
拜拜。
OK，好的。